Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another episode of the Youth Cafe podcast, and I'm your host, Shali Gemeli. So when Michelle Obama said that there's no limit to what we as women can accomplish, she really spoke to the heart of this episode. Today, we are thrilled to have Mercy Mwangi, the CEO of Kenya Women Parliamentary Association, with us, and she really embodies this spirit. We will explore about empowering women in the fight against democracy capture, demonstrating how women are making incredible strides in safeguarding democratic values and pushing back against democratic erosion. It's a powerful reminder that the sky is the limit. Let's get into this inspiring conversation. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Yeah, so could you please share a bit more about yourself?
So my name is Mercy Mwangi. I serve as the Executive Director at the Kenya Women Parliamentary Association. So maybe just briefly, KEWOPA is an institution that brings together all the women parliamentarians from the National Assembly and the Senate. We currently have 1 or 2 women members of parliament. So in the National Assembly, we have 81 of them, and in the Senate, we have 21 of them. So I serve as the executive director, and so my work mainly revolves around supporting the women parliamentarians so that they are able to effectively carry out their roles of legislation, oversight, and representation. So in a nutshell, and I also now support the KEWOPA Secretariat team. I manage the team. Yeah.
Okay. So before we get into the discussion, if you are given a free pass to run for any elective seat, which one would you choose and why?
Oh, wow. Interesting. I've never thought of that. Maybe president?
Yes. Go you.
President. Mm-hmm. But I think any leadership opportunity is an opportunity to bring change. Mm-hmm. So whether it's an MCA, MP, governor, president, but to answer your question, president, because like they have the overall direction of the country.
When you are not flying, you are lying.
No. We want to bring better leaders. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And by the way, during the IDD trivia, you did so well. I was there like, hey, this girl
Thank
is...
you.
This girl is...
Thank you.
Ningekuwa hapo walai. Mngedhani natumia constitution ya US. The answers.
Thank you.
Yeah, so now, Mercy, we would like to understand what is democracy capture?
So first, maybe we start with what is democracy, so that by the time we're talking about democracy capture. So of course, we know democracy is a universally recognized ideal, and in Kenya, we know it's already enshrined in our constitution under Article 10. There are different values that as Kenyans, as a government, we are supposed to follow. And so when we talk about democracy capture, we are talking about a few individuals then who are appropriating the systems, institutions to favor themselves. Yeah, and we've been seeing this happening on and on in Kenya recently. There's a lot of democracy capture of institutions, of systems, of processes within different sectors. And this overall ensures that we don't have good governance, corruption, and other ills in the society. So I'd say democracy capture is this system where a little elites or the privileged or the politically elite are capturing different institutions, different processes to maintain the status quo, to maintain their privilege. Whereas disadvantaging other Kenyans who are not able to reach at this level.
Is there a difference between democracy capture and corruption, maybe?
I would say corruption is a bigger symptom or an outcome of democracy capture, because once these few individuals capture the democratic governance systems, for example, then you find that there's corruption in this system. So, for example, if we are talking about the electoral process, you find that there's corruption during the electoral processes, from the get-go, from electoral registration to the voting, to the counting, to the audits. And it's because there are these few individuals who have either placed people in the election management authority, in this case being IEBC, or we always hear sometimes politicians talking about the what are they called, the IEBC officers during the vote that waliletwa na mtu fulani or my opponent. That's part of corruption. Yeah. So I would say corruption is a bigger, or it's an outcome of democracy capture. Yeah.
And speaking of that, now that today we are just speaking about women,
Yes.
Can you share examples of how women leaders have been disproportionately affected by the manipulation of political systems?
Wow, that is, we can spend a whole day talking about that, yeah?
That's why we are here.
So when we talk about democracy capture, one of the things that it does then is exclude certain groups of people. So in this case, when you talk about women in political systems or women in politics, number one, already we can look at the numbers. Already, because of the marginalization that women have had, the historical marginalization that women have had over the years, number one, we see that we have very few women at the decision-making spaces. I know the Constitution has brought in, has enshrined the principles of inclusion, but we are not yet there. You keep hearing us talking about the 2/3 gender rule every day. We are talking about every day about other things like FGM. We are talking about gender-based violence. All these things are because of democracy capture. Because if our systems are not working, if a girl is raped and the judiciary takes 7 years to go through her case, what are we doing? Yeah. So coming back to manipulation of political systems, I've spoken about, for example, the election period. Women face a lot of political violence during the election period, beyond being marginalized, beyond the cultural stereotypes that women cannot lead. Political violence is one of the things that we have seen in Kenya a lot, and it's becoming worse. I saw the theme for IDD this year is AI and as a tool for good governance.
Yeah.
But we've seen, like in the past election, a lot of social media attacks. We are calling it nowadays technologically facilitated JBV. So when women decide to vie for certain political offices, you see that there's an increased attack on women on social media. They put up a post that they were campaigning, God knows where, in Westlands constituency, and then somebody will come and tell them, oh, your breasts, your butt, your what, you know? And the woman is just talking about what they want to do, yeah? There's a lot of attacks, bodily attacks. Women are attacked with their children, with their husbands, who they're sleeping with, who you know, all those kind of things. So that, in essence, creates a barrier for many women to come into politics, participate in political in politics. Number two, in Kenya, when we look at Kenya, there are very weak financing regulations. In Kenya right now, if you decide to vie for a governor, I've had politicians, because I interact a lot with politicians, you'll have the figures being thrown that if I need to be a governor of a certain county, and especially like the big counties, Nairobi, Mombasa, Nakuru, Kiambu, you hear figures of up to 200 million to campaign. I need 200 million to campaign. Yeah. So already the escalating costs and increasing monetization of politics then already creates a barrier, because which regular woman has lose 100 million, even not even 100 million, 10 million? Yeah. Recently there was just before the election, there was a survey that was done. I think it was Mzalendo, or I can't remember who did it, but they were looking at the cost of campaigning, and the figures, like you would see for an MCA is, I think, 10 million or about that much. MP is another tens of millions. So the escalating monetization of politics. And the citizenry also form part of the problem, because every time Mercy comes, if she's vying for this constituency here, if I come here, there's an expectation by the citizens that I will give something. In fact, when we were supporting the women MPs in the last election, Kewopa, we would go to some constituencies and we are having a community engagement activity, and sometimes people will just tell you, oh, we are tired, wewe ndio tunakupea kiti tupe pesa, like what have you come with? Yeah, so this is part of the democracy capture, and it now trickles down to the citizen, and they also contribute to this democracy capture. Another thing I would say, like political parties, and I know you'll ask me about political parties later on, because political parties in Kenya are largely owned by men. That's the first thing. The decisions are made, when you look at also the political party leadership structures, they don't have a lot of women in those structures. I know the Register of Political Parties has been trying to encourage that they follow the 2/3 gender principle as is required by the Constitution, but we still see the important decisions are being made by men, and so it leaves out women and therefore excluding them from politics. A lot of women, a lot of politics in Kenya, and a lot of elective positions, people come in through political parties, unfortunately. I know the Constitution does provide for independent positions, but in Kenya, political parties are the drivers of politics, unfortunately. And so when we see that a lot of the decisions are being made by men, a lot of times women are forgotten. When you see parties merging and we have these different formations, Azimio, Kenya Kwanza, and even the previous ones we had, a lot of women get lost in those political party formations. You can look at even the principles of these political party formations, largely 90% are usually men.
Amen.
Then sometimes they remember, oh, the face of, we need a face for the, for the photos. And so, so that contributes and perpetuates exclusion. So I think I can talk about that for now with regards to women in political participation.
Wow. Yeah. Beautiful insight. So now let's get to political parties. So how do power dynamics within the political parties now impact women's abilities to advocate for reforms?
So I've already spoken about political parties being owned by men. So a lot of decisions then end up being made by men. So the voice of women is not heard in these spaces. So women then are unable to advocate for reforms at that level. So when we are talking about, for example, during the elections period, there's a lot of things going on at the political party level. There's nominations going on, there's nomination fees, and so on and so forth. There's the political party primaries in each constituency or even at the ward level. If women are not part of these decisions, then a lot of things might go unheard or unseen. So a lot of times you find that decisions made there are not in favor of women. I'll give an example. In the last election, I won't name parties but I'll just talk generally. So there are parties that gave women in strong constituencies direct nominations, meaning that if Mercy, and especially those who are already incumbent, I can mention a few, like ODM I think did really well. The women from Homa Bay, Honorable Millie, Honorable Ivo Barra, Honorable Wanga, and there's also one more, so they were given direct tickets. On the other hand, and our political parties also play out differently in different regions. So giving, for example, a UDA woman a political party ticket in Homa Bay, then that would not work, right? So such decisions, you find that most likely there was somebody at the influential positions of the political parties. And so such decisions are made, and it contributes to enhanced participation of women in politics. Then the other thing within political parties we've seen, which is recent, the fusion of governments and the opposition, because they're political parties, and so a lot of times, bipartisan, we hear of bipartisan talks. In the last parliament, we heard of handshake. Now we are hearing of broad-based government. And so this is part of democracy capture. And when this happens, we've seen it's involved appointment of people from opposition to key positions in government. And there were no women, first of all. If you look at for example, the CSs we got from what we say the opposition, there were no women who got CS positions from the opposition side. And so exclusion continues, when we are talking about fusing government and the opposition. The exclusion continues, And so we are seeing that at that level. And when they are given these dockets, they are big dockets. We saw finance, we saw, I think, energy. These are dockets that women could actually advocate for reforms.
Yeah.
If we look at the energy sector, for example, a lot of women are the ones who are primary users of energy. When we talk about firewood, they're
Yeah, true.
It's a whole economy. So imagine if we had, like, for example, a woman making decisions and reforms in the energy sector. I know sometimes we say, even men can speak for the women and so on and so forth, but it's important to actually have the voices of women in these decision-making spaces. So there's a lot of capture within also the political parties, and a lot of times women tend to get excluded. Yes.
And you've mentioned something on maybe ODM selecting specific women who are well known, right? Now, does this mean that for young people who are getting into politics, is it kind of slightly tougher for them?
Absolutely. When I talk about exclusion, maybe I dealt a lot on women. So imagine if already women are being excluded, then the young people. When we talk about money, for example, being involved, being a huge resource that you need when you're coming into politics. How many youth can raise even $1 million, even $500,000?
Hey.
And you're looking at the current economy, like a lot of youths don't have jobs, for example, so they don't have like a stable income. So they're not able to even raise or even take a loan, because when people are vying for political office, I see some even take loans. But you see, when you're taking a loan, you need to have something, some collateral, whether it's some piece of land, a car, something. How many youth can afford that? And that's why I was saying the citizenry also is perpetuating democracy capture, because the citizenry are the ones who are also expecting that when a leader comes, I would also need some, 200 unga, leso, something. So imagine if we had a nation where Mercy or Shali decides to vie for politics. Let's say I decide to vie for, Westlands constituency. And I come with my manifesto, and this is what I'd like to do when I become a legislator. And people listen and they choose us because of what we are saying, and not, money.
What we offer.
Yes, what we offer. So it is very important then for like laws and also the citizenry to be informed, so that we are able to have a more democratic, as the Constitution envisions. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now let's get to the legislative part. So the frameworks that exists. Are there any that Kenya can copy maybe from other countries that have succeeded in this fight for women being in politics?
So there are many examples that we can copy. Even just next door, Rwanda, but most of the times you find that where we have more women in decision making, there are either affirmative action programs, either by law or just programs ensuring that women are brought into these spaces. So for example, like Rwanda, I think they have within the political parties where women are brought in to the legislature. But also, I would just say our constitution is a very good document. It enshrines the principles of inclusion. It's just that we have not, it's political will. We do not have political will to actualize this. It's been now, we just celebrated 14 years, right? Since the constitution was promulgated. Why don't we still, it's actually the only thing, for example, the 2/3 gender principle that has not been passed. We did devolution, we built offices, spending lots of money, but we are not yet there when it comes to the principles of affirmative action with regards to 2/3 gender principle. So there are best practices we can borrow from other countries, but I think if we just decided to follow our constitution to the letter, then we would be able to achieve these tenets of good governance. Yeah.
So now, Mercy, I know there's a girl, a lady, a woman somewhere looking at you and they're like, this woman, when I grow up, I want to be like them.
Yeah.
So could you please tell us, like, your steps, like how did you manage to get to Kewopa?
Oh, wow. Yeah, so I saw a job and I applied.
Oh.
I saw a job advert and I applied.
Just like that?
Yes. A lot of people think that I don't know. Yeah, so I was working in another NGO. So my background is I did a Bachelor of Environmental Studies and Community Development for my undergrad. So I was working in an NGO that works in environmental management, yeah. And then I saw an advert. So I joined Kewopa as a program manager. So they had different departments, and one of the departments was environmental something. I can't remember the full name. So I applied for the job, for the program manager job. After, I think, a week, I was called for an interview. I did the interview. I was interviewed by members of parliament and the then executive director. Yeah, and after a week, I was offered the job. Yeah, so I came in as a program manager, and then after 5 years now, I came into the executive director's role.
Oh, wow, meaning there's hope.
There's hope.
Can you slightly address unemployment in this country, especially for the girl child now?
Yeah. Oh, wow. It is a bit sad, actually, because the levels of unemployment in Kenya currently are a bit crazy. I've seen friends, family, and like for me now in the position I am, and people see me with politicians, of course, I keep getting CVs. I've become the auntie or the uncle, yeah? The village auntie or the uncle.
Who doesn't open WhatsApp?
Yeah, and people are sending you their CVs and telling you, Mercy, can you get me a job in parliament? And, all those kind of things. So we are in a dire situation, and I think the government needs to actually, I don't know, waweke mikakati. Watenge, waweke mikakati to ensure that at least the youth are participating, whether it's creatively, and are able to get some sort of income.
Okay.
Yes.
And are there any programs that you know of that maybe women can join, wapate something small?
So I don't know, government has different programs. So I would say maybe, like, for example, the funds, they are like the government funds. So there's the women, what is it called? WEF, Women Empowerment Fund. There's the Uwezo Fund. There's the Youth Empowerment Fund. And there's one more. So, and then there's the Hustler Fund. So I'm talking about these ones because these are either, some of them are grants, some of them are loans, and they're usually affordable, so to say. And this can usually, like Uwezo Fund, Women Empowerment Fund, I've seen like women groups, especially in the grassroots level, who have taken advantage of these funds and have been able to grow their small businesses into something, and have been able to eke out a living out of that. Yeah. So, but I realize every time that we go to the county level, I realize a lot of people still don't understand how these funds work. And because of the mistrust with government, a lot of people also think, when government tells you need to register as a group and do what, so they start thinking, okay, this is just like going to the bank. When you want to go to the bank and the bank asks you for, statements, they need to see you have a steady income. Yeah, so I think there needs to be more education on such funds. People can take advantage. I know the Hustler Fund, I think it was amplified because it was like a key promise for this current government. I don't know how that one is doing, but because I've engaged with Women Empowerment Fund, WFEF, and Uwezo Fund, and I know some people have benefited from those funds at the community level. Yeah. Okay.
And so far, so good. Yeah. What initiatives or programs has Kewopa implemented to mitigate the effects of democracy capture?
Okay, so earlier on we spoke about like how women are still being excluded in terms of participating in politics. So Kewopa, maybe just to tell you, Kewopa mainly supports the women parliamentarians. Yeah, so our work is to support the women MPs. so that they are able to carry out their work effectively. And this is legislation that is making laws oversight. They're able to oversight the executive, and for the Senate, for the women senators, the counties, and then representation, which is their third role. So representation means being able to speak up for their constituents. Yeah. So as KEWOPA, what we do is we support these members. So for example, if a member has like a legislation and they'd like to amplify it, they'd like to mobilize members of parliament, then we are able to support in that way. So sometimes we do support, like we get a legal drafter, if for example, if they don't have, although parliament does support that a lot. But mainly we support with technical expertise. So if, for example, I can give an example of like the reproductive health bill, which Millie has been pushing for the last God knows when. So we get people in the reproductive health sector who are experts to give input, to feed into the law, to bring other stakeholders, and also to lobby members of parliament so that they're able to vote in favor of that. For the representation role, we also do a lot of community engagement activities. So it could be discussing key topical issues. It could be FGM, it could be gender-based violence, it could be about women and economic empowerment. And so we link our members with their constituents at the community level so that they are able to either pick up their grievances and come represent them to parliament, or sometimes when we have something, topical issue going on at the national level, we then go have a community engagement with constituents to tell them what's going on. Or if an important bill, for example, is passed in parliament, a law, like for example, during when the Marriage Act was passed and people are saying, oh, wamama sasa wamefanya kukue polygamous marriage. So we had community engagement forums to explain to the communities the kinds of marriage, because the Marriage Act provides for different kinds of marriage. So number one is like a Christian marriage, then the cultural marriage, which now, if for example, like Kikuyus, they used to practice polygamy. So just sensitizing the women that if you accept to be married through cultural marriage, there's a possibility that another woman could be brought. Yeah, but if you want to go to Christian or the other one for the AG, civil marriage, then that one does not provide for, polygamy. Yeah, so just engaging the communities, clarifying what has been passed, and also breaking down some of the laws in bite size. A lot of people say hatujui ni nini yo anapitisha. So yeah, so we support that. And then during elections time, or maybe like 2 years before, we normally have mentorship and training programs for women aspirants, women who are aspiring to be candidates for different seats, political seats. So we do train them on different aspects, so whether it's how to brand themselves, resourcing, like I said, campaigns are a money intensive thing. So we train them on how they can best resource, engage with political parties. So we work with political parties, bring in and tell them, how political parties work, because a lot of women, you find that they're not aware. Yeah, so different aspects of the campaign period. And then we also work with different institutions, so state and non-state actors. So you find that we work a lot with, like, for example, the Ministry of Gender to actualize different, because the ministry is in charge of policy making. So we work closely because the policy will have to come to parliament to be approved. And also the ministry runs different programs, gender programs, that promote participation of women in different sectors, not now only in politics, in whether it's women economic empowerment, FGM, GRB, GBV, and I'm talking a lot in, so GRB is gender responsive budgeting, GBV is gender-based violence, FGM is female genital mutilation, and so on and so forth. We also work a lot with civil society organizations. So sometimes I say civil society organizations have to make the noise from outside. So if things are not going on well in parliament, for example, we can't be the ones who are tunajishtaki, Yeah, so we do work. Yeah, we can't attack ourselves. So I can give an example, like when the 2/3 over there, because it's been a whole journey. So some civil society organizations went to court to really sue Parliament because of not actualizing what is required by the Constitution. So yeah, but we engage closely with them, even for the lobbying activities, the advocacy activities, and in also other topical issues. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. You've spoken about mentoring the aspirants. Are there requirements maybe for someone to be a member of COP 2027 in Caribbean? So women who want to vie should be taking tips. Yeah. So are there any requirements like for someone to be a member?
So KEWAPA membership is strictly for women members of parliament. That's one thing people don't seem to understand. So KEWAPA membership, it's like LSK, the way it's lawyers only. Yeah. But they can do other legal activities. Yeah. So KEWAPA is only for women members of parliament who are currently sitting. Yeah. That's why I told you our membership is 102. But we do work with other women in the political, like for example, we work with the governors, women governors, we work with the women MCAs, we do training for the women MCAs, we engage with the women MCAs. For the women aspirants, so what we normally do is that we start asking for, if you think you will vie for whatever position, from MCA to president, there are like 6 positions. Like we start getting the database, and then now when we start the trainings, we invite them to the trainings. So from all political party formations. So we do that, number one, through our members, but sometimes we also do open calls. Like if you come from, if for example you want to train in Nairobi County, we'll ask if you come from Nairobi County and you'd like to vie for any position, whether it's MCA, whether it's MP, senator, governor, or president. Yeah. Yes. So we do a public call and then now put them in our database, and then we invite them during our meetings, the trainings. Yes.
And you've spoken about community engagement. Have you so far gone to all the counties?
Yes. I would say yes. We, though over a period of time, I would not say that in the last 2 years we've gone to all the counties, but we've gone to over half the counties, at least 20-something counties so far. So we have also different activities in the counties beyond the community engagement. Yeah, so like now, yesterday I was in Kitui training budget champions at the county level on gender responsive budgeting, how they're able to track the budget process at the county level, at the national level, and keep government accountable. So yeah, so we have been to, I would say, at least half the counties so far in this parliamentary term. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So now let's get to, you mentioned on CSOs. So how can global movements maybe for democracy and women's rights collaborate to reinforce efforts against democracy capture?
So I said we work with CSOs a lot, and civil society play an important role in holding government accountable and also putting, restraints on state power, Sometimes the state can be, we are the people, and so civil society plays an important role in holding government accountable. And a lot of times, even you see in Kenya that some of these things that have come into the limelight, it's because the civil society have, spoken up loudly. So I think it's important for, consistent engagement of civil society in government agenda, because they're the ones who are always keeping the government in check. Of course, we have the opposition, but we talked about the handshakes and all. So so, and I would say democratic processes can be deepened if civil society is vibrant in any country. Yeah.
And now, so far, KEWAPA, what are you maybe aspiring to do concerning democracy capture?
So I would say number one, ensuring that we are able to uphold the rule of law. If as KEWAPA we can call for government actors, institutions to uphold the rule of law, then we will be we will have washed our hands. Yeah, we'll be living in a properly democratic country that is inclusive, that is accountable. All those tenets of governance that we are aspiring to reach. And so when it comes to, for example, exclusion of women in political participation, I think one of the things that as Keopa we'd like to aspire to have is ensure that there's a framework governing the two-thirds principle as is required by the Constitution. It's been, since I joined Keopa, I have been talking about the two-thirds. Sometimes I'm just like, my God, I'm tired.
It's becoming a song.
Yes. So I think that would be one of a good win for Kewopa. And even with CSOs, and there has been so much investment that has gone to actualizing the two-thirds, and nothing, we are not yet there. And even up to now, we've been, when this government was coming into place, they said within the first 90 days, they will actualize the two-thirds. We are how many years in? 2 years in. They also talked about having a 50-50 cabinet, women and men. Are we saying 50-50?
But
so
in their defense, some men have not declared their gender publicly, so we don't know.
No, it's
maybe they have male names, but they are not male.
No, we can't. And you see, that's part of democracy capture, because now you start perpetuating that men can be women. Men can vie for women rep position. Men can. It's part of exclusion. It's part of the exclusion I'm talking about. So if we are governed by the rule of law, and if we are accountable to ourselves, if we say cabinet will be 50-50, why? And it's you making the decisions to appoint these people. Why are you coming up with a cabinet that is not as you promised? So I think we still have strides to make. At least we have, I think, a third, which is the bare minimum that the Constitution requires. We can do better. And so some of these, like I said, civil society, for example, should call out. For as Kewopa, you realize some of our members are part of government, so sometimes it becomes very difficult to call out government. But also we also have some members who are in opposition. So in such instances, we do try to see how we can best work to, persuade government, I would say, to stick to the rule of law. So two-thirds to be actualized, sticking to the rule of law, and I think strengthening electoral laws so that they're able to protect women against, I talked about, like, for example, political violence. We see a lot of political, you saw, like, in the last election, Honorable Millie, was it the previous one where her house was burned, her bodyguard was killed, and then even when you speak to women, you find that they are abused every day. It's even been normalized. In fact, sometimes I hear women politicians saying, ukiingia siasa kama hujaitwa malaya hujaingia siasa. I mean, that is violence, that is abuse. But we have normalized it until we are saying kama hujaitwa malaya hujaingia siasa vizuri. So you see, and our electoral laws, we have election offenses, but a lot of times you find that even women will not report this because they don't trust the institutions that are required to uphold the rule of law, the judiciary, the police. Even when the police, in fact, some women were telling us, some women aspirants were telling us when they reported that they were, like maybe they were in a convoy and they were attacked. And when they went to report to the police are asking them, sasa wewe ulichagua kuingia siasa kitu kidogo kama hii, and the police, you see, I'm coming to report something that has happened to me, a wrongdoing that has happened to me. The best they should be doing is, helping, expediting the process, taking it to court and so on and so forth. But now people won't even report because when they go to police, the police are part of the problem. They have actualized, they have normalized this. So strengthening the laws so that they are able to protect women against all these things. Also, campaign financing. We have been talking about the campaign financing bill for a while, but democracy capture, nobody wants, and it's the politicians themselves who don't want to pass it because there are people who benefit from it. Because when we are talking about having, for example, a campaign financing law, it's saying that if Shirley is vying for president, we need you to declare who is funding your campaign, what interests do they have. Then after the election, you need to account, And most politicians in Kenya, because of the power they hold, they want status quo to remain, so that they are funded, and then once they are in these positions of power, then that's how you find that people are then now giving business, kickbacks and all those things going on, and so the status quo remains, and we continue being in this space.
Now speaking of social media and the digital divide, so does this affect people from the marginalized areas, like women in the marginalized areas? Let's say during campaign, now you want to campaign, right now, most people I know they'll campaign via social media. Will that really affect women who are in the marginalized societies?
Yes. Currently in Kenya, there's a very high uptake of mobile phones. So you'll find that even in the most remote area, people have mobile phones. I was looking at some data, I can't quite remember but it was, I think, was it 60 million phones in Kenya? Like the number of phones, I think, are more than our population or something to that effect. I can check the statistics. So you'll find, a lot of times you find that most people have access. A majority of Kenyans have access to a phone, and nowadays you find that information spreads faster through even social media. Before, nowadays it's not those days we used to wait for 7 o'clock news to hear what's been going on. In fact, news is actually breaking on social media. You saw how the youth organized in June during the protests, and people were saying ni mambo ya Nairobi, but did you see I think it's the largest protest that has ever happened in Kenya simultaneously, even in the county level, and you could see that youth were coming out, and they mobilized how? Through social media. They mobilized through social media. So going back to your question is that yes, it affects even the women in the marginalized areas, because nowadays social media has become an important tool, campaign tool, and so you find that a lot of times when people decide to vie, and you can check in the last election, most people open up a social media page, whether they're the ones running it or it's being run by their campaign teams. They open up because they want to show leo nilikuwa place fulani, and it's also a good way to communicate with larger audiences. So but like I said earlier when we were starting, when they communicate what they're doing, you find that people will actually go to the comment section and abuse them. Like I've posted about this, but you're telling me about a totally different thing. So it's an emerging trend where women are increasingly being attacked on social media, and it's something that we really need. Social media should be a good thing. I would not fault it. It's supposed to be a good thing, and it has worked
we are there for the
vibes
good, and inshallah.
And the vibes and inshallah, but also it can be a good campaign tool. It can be a cheap campaign tool. We talked about extensive, but you see, if for example I had a message here for even this podcast and released it on YouTube, it can reach up to millions of people. So you're able to reach your constituents in an easy, affordable way, and so we should harness the positive sides.
Okay, nice. So now as we conclude, what advice would you give to women, girls, ladies who would like maybe to vie and later on join Kewopa? What would you tell them?
Go for it. Actually, when you look at the numbers by IEBC on how Kenyans elect people, not women, the numbers don't speak to people not wanting to elect women. It's just that there are fewer women who are coming out to be elected. So in the last election, for example, I think there were about 11,000 men who vied for different positions, from the president to the MCA. And then only about, 1,100 women for the positions. And 10% of those women were elected and 10% of the men. So if we had more women in this political race, then there is a chance that more women will get elected. But you see, there are still very many barriers. The barriers we were talking about, the money, the resources, cultural misconceptions about women in leadership. Like in the northern part of the country, apart from some counties have never elected woman MP or any other position apart from the woman rep. And this is an affirmative action position that is guaranteed by the constitution. So that means if we did not have this position, some counties would still not have a woman representing them in parliament. Yeah. So I would encourage more women to come into these, to get out and try vie for these positions. Even though I know there are many barriers, there is money, but the more, if for example we had 10,000 women and 10,000 men, most likely we would get better numbers for women. Yeah. So I would say go for it. Go for it if you want to vie.
And is there a way we can break the cultural barriers?
Yeah, I think so. We've seen some women who have broken the cultural barriers, even though cultural norms are very hard to break. Yeah, and unfortunately, even the women are socialized and brought up in these cultures, so they grow up thinking in that kind of way. But we've seen women from different, especially those very patriarchal societies, being elected. We have a good example, Naisula, who was first nominated. Now she's a woman. She's an MP. She's a member of parliament for Samburu West. In Garissa, we had Sophia Noor, even though she's not a member right now. But she came from a community that traditionally does not elect women, and especially in the northern parts where the cultural custodians make the decisions. They actually say, President, tunapea huyu, Governor, ni huyu, and it's usually all men. Even women rep, kama wangekuwa they would give a man, but now the constitution requires that. Yeah, and so like in the last election, I saw a woman really fight it hard. And the cultural custodian said she wanted to vie for an MP position, and they said, no, tumepea fulani, a man. So then she went ahead and vied, and she made it to the election, but she didn't win. Because even people there are socialized. A woman, you know,
you can't
how are you? Unapigana aje na wanaume? Yeah, but I think we are in the right direction. We are like, they're seeing women coming into these positions and taking leadership, and so I think with time it's going to change. And also with the women rep position, because it's an affirmative action position, so they're able to see that there are women leaders who can take up this position. So I think it's gonna change with time, but I would encourage women to tukuje tukiwa wengi, tukue 10,000 aspirants men, 10,000 aspirants women, then you'll see that we'll have more women elected.
Considering we are even more than men.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Yeah, and is there a way maybe those people can get educated?
Yes, I think we just need like civic education, proper civic education, just to tell people that this seat, for example, if it's president, these are the requirements. Hakuna mahali imesema man or woman, yeah. So these are the requirements. If an individual meets this list of requirements, we talk about the good governance, all those tenets, you're incorruptible, all those things, yeah. If I meet this, then why are you not electing me? Yeah. So it's important to have civic education amongst the citizenry, so that they know that anybody can be a leader. There are, of course, the things that are required, but anybody can be a leader. It's not a gender issue, and I'm seeing the youth are starting to bring this up. The tribeless, partyless, all those things. Yes. If we continue like that, we might have more women, or even just more people who are not, the political class that we are used to. We might get new entrants into the political scene.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah. So what would your parting shot be?
My parting shot would be, we need to dismantle some of this,
Hey.
We need to dismantle some of these systems that are in place for Kenya to actually attain, actual what we would want a democratic country to be. Yeah. And this would include a lot of things, adhering to the rule of law, bringing in leaders who are accountable, who bring in the tenets of good governance, good democracy. Yeah, we need to dismantle this deep deep structure, deep state capture. Yeah, that's what I would say.
So umesema tujitokeze.
Tujitume.
Okay,
yes, that would be my parting shot.
Okay.
Yes.
So as you conclude, our followers might want to maybe follow you and socialize with you. Yeah. So would you share your social media handles?
So my social media handle is Mercy _Mwangi on Twitter at X. And then Mercy Mwangi on LinkedIn. Yeah.
And speaking of social media, are there social media like unaweza sema which one inapelekanga information faster for you now, let's say for Kewopa?
Also, you could also, we have Kewopa social media. I think it's Kewopa everywhere. So on Twitter it's at Kewopa. I think Facebook is at Kewopa Kenya. LinkedIn also, which other one? Instagram, TikTok. We are, so you can tag Kewopa at Kewopa.
Okay.
Yes. So we are in almost, I think, all the platforms. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, you can reach me mostly on Twitter and
LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn. Facebook, I'm equal to.
Not active.
I'm not very active. And Instagram is more private, so
okay, no problem. So Mercy, thank you so much for heeding. You're welcome. Thank you for heeding to our call and giving your very powerful insights. Hey, when I grow up. Thank
you very much for having me.
And to our followers, thank you so much for sticking with us to the end. Kindly share, like, and subscribe to our channel. Until the next one, bye.
Bye.